taking time to think about the future.
Together with them, we invited the artist Sara Siestreem, who is a Hanis Coos from the south coast of Oregon. And Sara is an artist who has shown internationally, and she's in the collection of many significant museums and private collections. Their collaboration became a focal point of the exhibition with a presentation of newly commissioned work by Sara. Sara works in painting, photography, printmaking, weaving, and large-scale installation. Drawing on her abstract mark-making and interweaving Shinnecock and Hanis Coos cultural, ecological traditions, Sara's paintings and ceramic sculptures, which I hope you had the pleasure of seeing in the galleries, they explore the Shinnecock Kelp Farmers project. And today we have the distinct pleasure of having all the Shinnecock Kelp Farmers here with us, and I would like to introduce them by name. Danielle Hobson-Bigun, Donna Collins-Smith, Tila Troge, Darlene Troge, and Becky Genia. And I've heard it's really rare to get them all together at once. So this is a really special treat, you guys. Okay, just a little bit of context here. The Regeneration, Long Island's History of Ecological Art and Care, is part of the museum's USA 250, Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness, a year-long program organized in response to the United States' 250th anniversary this year. where artists reflect on the nation's history and founding values. They examine the present moment and imagine new ways of moving forward, of course, from many different points of views. And responding to the language in the Declaration of Independence that states life as one of the inalienable rights, Regeneration explores our responsibility to the various forms of life that sustains us. Regeneration is co-organized by Scout Hutchinson, our associate curator of contemporary art here at the parish, and myself. And I want to thank all the people who made this possible. It always takes a village. We want to thank Lois Whitman Hess and Elliot Hess, the Robert David Lyon Gardner Foundation, Sandy and Stephen Perlbinder, who are here today. Thank you, Sandy and Stephen, and the Robert Rauschenberg Foundation. Additional support is made possible in part with the public funding provided by the Suffolk County Department of Economic Development and Planning's Office of Cultural Affairs. We're also very grateful to Kristen Tierney Gallery in New York for their very generous support of this project. So Scout, please take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Corinne. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. We're excited to talk about the collaboration that has taken place over the past about year and a half or so, maybe a little bit more, between the Shinnecock Kelp Farmers and Sara Siestreem. Hopefully you all have had a chance to see the installation in our galleries, but here's an image of really the beautiful work that came about through this conversation. So I thought we would start maybe by just starting with, Sara came and did 3 visits here to the East End over the course of this collaboration. And Sara, I'm going to share some images from your first trip out east. And maybe you can speak to the experience of coming out here for the first time, what your expectations and what surprised you, but also as we're looking at these images with the Shinnecock Kelp Farmers here, to just talk about the process of your work and what you do. So maybe I'll start with you, Sara, just you're kind of coming out here for the first time.
Sure, yeah, thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I can't hear you guys very well, but I'll do my best. So yeah, this was the first trip where I got to go out. It was about this time last year, and I got to go in the water with the kelp farmers and pick the kelp. And it was a really incredible foundation experience to understand the process kind of backwards, It was at the end of the season. So it was just so incredible. The water was so healing. And when we first got in, Donna reached down under her feet and pulled up a huge horse crab and said, "Alive and well in the Shinnecock Bay." And it was kind of the kickoff. And from there on, every moment was filled with ceremony and healing and teaching. These women taught me so much. Every second I just got to be with them and watch and harvest these babies with them and just go through the whole process. So it was really incredible.
Those of you on stage to maybe talk about sort of where we are in the process with what we're seeing now, because I know this is about springtime when Sara came out for the first time. I think it was in March or April. So we're kind of seeing some images later in the process of kelp harvesting. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is when we were,
Yeah.
we were harvesting, and as you can see, the line is a little thin, but we're removing it. It's been out all winter, and it's time to bring it in because then it will start to degrade. And it was great having Sara with us, knowing that she was going to share our story in art, in word, and there was an immediate connection, a sisterhood, and we had a wonderful time out there. And you can see there's joy all along the process because of what we're doing and what it accomplishes. But that harvest is priceless because you get to see what went from microscopic in our hatchery putting it out, being very careful as we outplanted it, and then to see it weeks, months later to look that beautiful. So that's what we were doing at that time.
I hope in a second here we're going to see a short video that Sara took when she was here, which just kind of shows you what the kelp is like in the water. I mean, I think it's one thing to hear about what you do, the Shinnecock Kelp Farmers, what that experience is like. It's another thing to see images of it and video of it, but it's a whole different experience actually being in the water. And Sara, I'm wondering if you can speak to that a little bit, just interacting with this kelp for the first time after hearing about the kelp farming process from the farmers.
This is an interesting, I hope it's time for me to speak because I have a wonderful story to share with you about this particular video. So all day long, the kelp farmers had agreed I could collect some things to use in the art to bring home with me. And so what I was looking for first was a big hunk of really healthy kelp that I could bring home and create Xeroxes of and put into the paintings. And so I found this section, and Dan was there and helped me kind of sort it out. And I took the video just to kind of make a memory of it. But this kelp that she helped me pick from this particular video, I brought into Manhattan and I took it to the FedEx and I made Xerox of it. You can't imagine how wild everybody thought I was, but I love a self-serve station. And then I took those Xerox home and I put them in the paintings that are in the exhibition. So that actual kelp, you can go see it in the room next door.
One of the most wonderful things about this process is that Sara has been with us for over a year. So though she started at the beginning during our harvest, she has followed us and been able to see all of our work from the hatchery as well as this following year. It's been really wonderful getting to know her.
Can you talk about, Dan, what we're seeing on the screen right now? This is the kelp at its very earliest stages, correct?
Yes. So we have our hatchery on the property of the Sisters of St. Joseph. We share the property and we have a new hatchery there. And these are our spools. Each spool has approximately 400 feet of outplantable kelp. And it takes about 8 weeks from microscopic seed through till they grow to be about 5 millimeters. And then we outplant them into whatever bay or waterway that we're looking to heal. This is probably towards the end of the hatchery season because you can kind of see how dark these spools have become. They start out white, it's just string, and they're dark and ready to go out. It's exciting to see.
And can you remind us, how long have the Shinnecock Kelp Farmers been an organization and doing this work? Since 2019?
2019.
Okay.
This is our 5th growing season.
And so I just think it's really incredible to see the kelp at this stage. And then it grows over the winter. There's a little bit of lag time in my slideshow here, so here we go. And then turns into this beautiful, almost garland of sugar kelp that you harvest in the springtime, which you're in harvest season right now, correct?
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle of harvest season. So we're halfway harvested, and at the next low tide cycle, at the full moon, we will finish.
And then the next photo that we're going to see, I think it's interesting for people to know that sugar kelp is a cold water crop. You are out in the water all winter in all conditions, rain or shine or snow in this case. And this is actually, Sara, this is your 3rd visit here, correct? You're muted, Sara, if you want to say anything.
Yeah, I'm just clapping and being like, oh. Yeah, that was a good day.
And this is some of your team here, Sarah, correct? Who helped create the work and install the work?
Yeah, those are my crew. So that's Indo Fulcher in the front with her hands on her hips. So she was an MFA grad alumni of mine from PNCA and has been beading for me for many years and doing a lot of different work for me. She's an incredible artist and educator. Is now teaching college. Next to her is Anna Peterson. They are also a longtime alumni student of mine and apprentice. They do all the beadwork and are now working as my studio manager. And then there in the front, that's Cassie with the fur around her head. So she worked on the prints. She was our printmaker. She's also an MFA grad of PNCA and worked with me in that capacity. So all the print material you see. And they actually got to get in the water. That they went out that day with the farmers, and it was like really incredible to have them get the full experience, you know, because it's in our field, it's not just like you show up, you do the work, you go away. It's a way more of a heart project, you know. And so these folks were super invested. And I wanted them to come and see what they had done and get to be part of that and be with the community who they were working for. You know, that was really important to them. So we all came out and had our first Southampton blizzard. It's pretty fun.
It interrupted our opening, but I think we all still had a great time that weekend. Speaking of and looking at this image, I wanted to ask the Shinnecock Kelp Farmers about the importance of community in the work that you do. I mean, you invite volunteers in to do checking on the lines, the outplanting in the fall, and then harvest in the spring. And I just wanted to kind of ask about how community is a part of the work that you do.
I'll talk a little bit about community. So especially this particular winter was very, very cold and rough for maintaining our farms. We had ice that we've never experienced before. We had a new farm and a new body of water in the Peconic as well as Shinnecock Bay, which completely froze over in terms of like walk on 50 feet out, froze over. Shinnecock Bay did not get as frozen and kind of broke up quickly because there's a really nice ocean flow from the inlet there. But we had an amazing crew of volunteers and farm help that really came out and helped when the conditions were poor. And we're always just so grateful to have buddies out there and to work hand in hand with the community, because it is for the community. This is not just for ourselves or for our nation. This is for all of us. So we're very grateful to have that help and to be able to see the grit that comes out of people when they're faced with this kind of work. It's deeply meditative. But it's also uncomfortable at times. Donna's shaking her head. And it's really wonderful to have people who are not necessarily Shinnecock Kelp Farmers who have elected to do this kind of work, but to come out on your own time. Sometimes it's 6 o'clock in the morning, sometimes it's 5 p.m. at night, and to help us out to make a better place.
One more word on community. This is a shared experience, not only to come and experience this exhibit and hear our story, but to understand that this is a shared community effort to save our water and to save our oxygen, not only for our relatives in the sea, but for ourselves as well. So when we speak of community and volunteers. It is very important to go out there when it's snowing and it's 30 degrees and we're working a cold water crop in the water. But the sense of commitment to do what it takes to save this sacred place that is sacred to all of us.
And can I just ask you to speak just briefly on how you got started? What was the impetus? What was the catalyst that motivated you to start this project 5 seasons ago?
So we started about 7 years ago. In 2019, Conscious Point came out. If there's anyone here who still has not seen that, I highly recommend. But it's a film featuring our co-founder, Becky, and her really tireless advocacy against overdevelopment and the harm that it's been having to the ecosystem here. And that played again nationwide on PBS during November. And Green Wave, which is a regenerative ocean farming organization based out of New Haven, reached out to us. They must have, to be honest, reached out maybe about 17 times before Becky said, Tila, could you find out who these folks are? And so I got in touch with them and they asked, like, they said, is there any way that you'd be interested in seaweed? And I said, yes, because I am interested in seaweed. Our nation was federally recognized in 2010. And that was after a 32-year effort of proving 7 distinct criteria to the United States government, one of which was that we had to satisfy the criteria that other sovereigns recognized our jurisdiction. And we were able to fulfill that criteria through judicial cases called the seaweed cases. And so you'll see some articles about that in the exhibit. John Strong, before his passing, he was a very good friend of ours, but he really went into the depths of the archives all the way through the 1600s, 1800s, and did a lot of research on those cases, which is incorporated into Sara's art here as well. But we got started because of that collaboration and that partnership. Green Wave provided a lot of technical expertise to us, really shared a lot of the scientific knowledge, which we then were able to intertwine with our ancestral wisdom and our knowledge of everything from the tides to the moon cycles. I mean, there were some real challenges to this industry in this area, but we were able to overcome them, I think, pretty well. We face obvious challenges with the ice this season, but that's what really got us started, that collaboration. And also the Peconic Estuary Partnership had done a study in 2019, also that same year, that recommended that our territory surround itself with sugar kelp in order to combat ocean acidification, which was having a really bad impact on our shells, which is something that we use to transmit and convey our culture, our kinship, our beliefs, ideas, what's important to us. And so our literal culture and tradition was being jeopardized. And like us as women, mothers, grandmothers, great grandmothers, we wanted to do something to take action so that future generations could continue this legacy and experience all of the abundant beauty here, but also be able to assert the sovereignty and have others recognize the jurisdiction that we hold over seaweed as a natural resource here in this region.
Thanks, Tila. And I think that all comes out in your beautiful song, Becky, Taking Time, which kind of led us into this program today. Do you want to, before we move into Sara's work, do you want to comment at all about writing that song and sort of the thought behind that song?
Yeah, sure. So, first of all, thank you all for coming out in this weather. It's, to me, I love this, like my favorite kind of weather. So, but some people are like, I'd rather stay home. So thank you for coming out. It's so good to see everyone here today. Lots and lots of familiar faces. And yeah, that song Taking Time I wrote like 40 years ago. And it kind of, sat in a box or something in a notebook somewhere for 20 years. But I remember writing it and, just the feelings pouring out. And but I didn't really, know what to do. So like 20 years later or so, I think it was about 20 years ago, and one of my grandsons, he's in the audience here. They're the kids in the background. So 20 years ago, I decided to record it. And we went to the recording studio, and him and his cousins, and so the song just is kind of timeless. And it's really an honor to have that song played when we do our presentations for the kelp farmers and everything. And I really love hearing it, and just seeing this guy now. He's a grown man with kids of his own, and hearing his little voice. He does the bird chirp at the end of the video, and I just love it. Breaks my heart every time. And to see all the walks of life in this kelp world with us now, it's absolutely amazing working with the Sisters of St. Joseph. We had Zen peacekeepers. We have Land Trust Alliance folks. We have lawyers and psychologists. Every walk of life, every race of people are with us in this journey to cleanse our Mother Earth, and to really think how, not just think, but act. How are we all going to do this? What is our part in this? Some people think, oh, what can I do? Everyone, every human being that breathes should think about how they can help clean this water and clean this air, and spread the word of how it is so important for each person to recognize our responsibility to this sacred Mother Earth of ours. So I thank you all for coming out. And Sara is so talented and wonderful. Her artists blow my mind anyhow. It's like, how do they think of this stuff? And because my kids are artists, but I didn't get that, no way. So this whole art world is another avenue to get us all thinking about the same thing. How can we help this beautiful mother who gives us everything? We have to give back.
Thank you, Becky. And I think your words were some that inspired the thought process behind the Regeneration exhibition as a whole, that you encourage people to do an action, no matter how small, even if it's only in your backyard, that is an important action for taking care of our ecosystem. So thank you. I think I'd like to transition to the work that came out of this collaboration, Sara. So I'm going to start with maybe the painting Sugar Kelp. And I'm just curious about, after you did some of your visits out here and your conversations with the Shinnecock Kelp Farmers, where you were when you were back in your studio. What were you thinking about? How were you going to approach this work, and how it came out in this beautiful painting, Sugar Kelp?
Oh, I mean, this one was slow and hard. I was very tentative in many ways, and took the work slowly and carefully. I was thinking about that first experience in the water with everyone, and in that break open moment that I spoke to earlier, when Donna holds up the horseshoe crab. It was just kind of this like ecstatic moment of natural healing and natural power, and just the goodness of it. And also these people's relationship to those animal beings, those family members in the water and everything else. It was just, so that huge on the right-hand side, on my right-hand side, that's the black outline there, that's the horseshoe crab. And then its tail goes all the way to the end. And what they taught me is that the horseshoe crab, which is an endangered species, mates in the sugar kelp beds. And they were doing it while we were working. And Dan and I have a lot of experiences walking through those moments, and the horseshoe crabs taking our boots as one of their own, because they kind of looked like that, and it was just like such a splendid classroom and church at the same time, to have these things all happening all around us, and because of what the kelp farmers were doing. So the horseshoe crab, which I've gone on to find out, is one of these prehistoric creatures that we don't know much about, but we do understand hold many, many keys to the future of science in terms of medical science for human beings, as well as just ecological balance. And so I wanted that creature to have a huge space in this. The other thing that's going on in this paint, and so the back there in the yellow end of the thing and all those red circles, that to me it represents the future generations coming through. So with everybody's taking care of the earth as best they can, then the earth will get back in line and these guys will take over and it'll be healthy again. So those are sort of the really optimistic metaphors I put in there. The other kind of juxtaposition of high-low is the kind of flower motif. So those are the scallops, the Shinnecock scallops, which are, a big part of why we need to take care of the earth so that our food sources will be there for us. So these Shinnecock kelp, these scallops are a food source. Now beneath it, there's these xerox of these oysters. So these are indigenous oysters from the Coos Bay estuary that were wiped out completely by the colonization of the bay. So it's a symbol for genocide and complete extinction. If we don't take care of things, these are the consequences. So I'm putting this East Coast, West Coast dichotomy up to say, let us again follow our people on the far edge of the country who are doing everything right and look at what's already happening from their efforts here. So those are some of the kind of surface correlations I'm creating. There's a bunch more, but let's keep going. I hope I spoke to what you were thinking about, Sky.
Absolutely.
Lur. Yeah. I'm sorry, you guys. I also have a really bad cold, so I'm a little bit foggy. Thanks, Scout.
And then Sugarloaf, this painting came next, and I think it was almost a surprise to you that you were going to make a second painting of this scale. And I'm just curious how this came about in the studio.
Yeah, I would love to speak to it. So in our culture, most of the tribes I work with kind of have the same worldview. So you've got ancestors first, take care of the ancestors, make sure that everything you're doing is in alignment with what they taught us and left us. Then you're caring for the current generation, you're holding them accountable and teaching them and feeding them so they can take it forward. And then you're also thinking down the road to the future generations, are the things I'm doing going to be good for them? And that kind of dictates a lot of how we do everything. In keeping with that, every time I met with the kelp farmers, and this wasn't just the 3 times on the ground, we got together in Zoom all the time. And every single time I spoke with them, they spoke about Sugarloaf. And the people in this region understand what Sugarloaf is and all the histrionics behind that, but also the incredible accomplishment of this community cross-culturally to bring back into recognition that this is a grave space. This is where the ancestors reside, and it's a place that has been hopefully put back to the right ways that it's supposed to be cared for. So I just kept hearing Sugarloaf, Sugarloaf. And so it was also then another very delicate place to talk about someone else's ancestral burial. Like that is like really risky, right? So I asked and they said, yes, do it. So that's kind of where what I'm talking about in this painting. And it should be the first thing that you see when you enter the space, ancestors first, right? And it's to ground you in the place that you're host from the beginning of human existence. These are the people who are hosting you, right? These are the people whose lands you're on, and you need to acknowledge them before anything else. So it was really important that this went in this place in the exhibition.
And would you like to speak, Becky, at all to the work, and Tila as well, to regaining Sugarloaf, which happened in the past years, and kind of its significance to the Shinnecock Indian Nation?
Just in context of, being here at the parish, when we were thinking about whether we wanted to participate in the America 250 project in partnership in collaboration with Parrish and Sarah. It was something that we really thought about, and we talked. We had a lot of meetings about it, I feel. But Sugarloaf is really important to us. It's part of Sugarloaf Hill is part of the Shinnecock Hills, and the Shinnecock Hills were stolen from us in violation of federal law in 1859. And this whole institution, the parish, was created as a result of the proceeds of that sale, because Samuel Parrish was the attorney for the Long Island Railroad, and he orchestrated the theft of the sale of our land, including Sugarloaf, in 1859. And then he became, once the New York State legislature passed a law that alienated the land from us, again in violation of federal law without the approval of the United States Congress, he then became the owner of all of the Shinnecock Hills, and then he sold them, and he sold them for $2,000. And he took the $2,000 and he started this cultural institution, the Parish Art Museum. So, of course, when this collaboration was suggested, that's kind of the first thing that I thought of. But since then, just recently, a number of years ago, in partnership and collaboration with the Neomuck Land Trust and Baconic Land Trust, and some other very generous local community members, as well as the Southampton Town Community Preservation Fund, we were able to, for the first time, connect back to our most sacred, arguably our most sacred burial ground, a place that has been used by tribes in this entire region, not just Shinnecock, but really like in Connecticut, Rhode Island. There were a number of tribes who traveled here specifically to bury their ancestors, and there were very advanced, developed ritual burial practices that are connected to this place that are documented as going back 6,000 years. So, fast forward to 1990, when the town of Southampton authorizes a used car salesman from New Jersey to build a mansion on top of it. I was born in 1987, to give you some context. So that happened in 1990. There wasn't much I could do about it, but I heard about it, of course. And so it always horrified me. And so when I became an attorney, I finished law school and I came back home, and Princess Chi-Chi told me that my job was to protect Sugarloaf. So I took 12 years to figure out how to do that, but in partnership and collaboration with John Halsey, especially, who's sitting here in the first row, is one of our biggest supporters. But we were able to reclaim that land, and now we're regenerating it. We tore down that horrific mansion. We must have been 20 bathrooms in there that were just dumping pollutants right into the bay. So right on the top of the watershed, right on our ancestors' bones. So we were able to get rid of that. We've got a beautiful meadow now. So yeah, it's just really important to us, but it's also a symbol of how we can work together to reclaim and to restore and to heal and to regenerate and to build something new. And also just want to take a moment while I have the microphone and everyone's listening to talk about William Merritt Chase, because what I understand about the Parish Art Museum is that you guys have 40 William Merritt Chase paintings, and I really appreciate his work because it shows the ecology of this area before all of this colonization. We think about colonizing happening in the 1600s, but I really think about it after William Merritt Chase came. And, he made all these beautiful paintings that we love, and we have this institution that has 40 of them, and they show the beautiful grasslands. And when Sarah came out, she said, okay, well, I weave, let's make a grass thing. And I'm like, we have some of the rarest maritime grassland ecosystem, but it's the smallest, it's almost gone. And so how did we go from William Merritt Chase's paintings and that beauty to the overdevelopment that Becky is fighting about in Conscious Point, and fighting for the land and for the ancestors and the next generation? So it's so much of what we do.
It is. Can I just please say the day that they tore that mansion down on Sugarloaf, I sat in my car across the road and I listened to the cranes and the bulldozers and everything and the crunches of them tearing that mansion down. And you talk about justice was served that day to restore that sacred place where They say at least 10,000 of our ancestors were buried in the cremation form. So the sacredness of that hill, the place, and the importance of Sugarloaf in the universe, it was justice that day. And we worked really hard to get the town of Southampton to do the right thing. And with all the allies and the support letters coming in from all directions, that's what did it. It was a unified effort. It was teamwork. And that day that was music to my ears to hear those massive crunches going on. But we did it. And everybody in this room knows who was really and truly a part of the restoration of Sugarloaf. And the ancestors know. They know who took part in that. And they know who didn't. And we're here to make sure that everyone in this room and whoever you want to talk to about it knows how important those sacred places are to indigenous people. We are the original people. This is our ancestral territory that we're sitting on right now. It means everything to us to do this work, to accomplish these missions through art, education, everything that we can think of, music, teaching. We want to be able to continue to eat the fish and the scallops and the clams and out of the bay. How are we going to eat if we don't take care of this earth and the waters? We're going to be so sick, we're going to die. And we're going to kill this earth and this overdevelopment, insanity. We have to tell the town of Southampton, you better slow down. And we need to purchase, preserve, and protect every single acre in those Shinnecock Hills, because not only is it the right thing to do for the environment, for the wildlife, for the plant life and everything, but in the universe too. Those prayers are out there. Help us protect these hills, and good things will happen when you jump on board to do the right thing. I promise you that.
Thank you, Becky. And I think a lot of the history that you shared, Tila, as well, comes out in most of the work, Sara, that's on view in the exhibition, but perhaps most directly in this piece, Sugarfoot, this installation that's at the center, at the heart of the gallery where the work is installed. And I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you decided to bring in the history and all of these documents that Tila sent to you over the course of your collaboration and the Zooms back and forth as well.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you. So the documents here become the shield through which these objects in the middle are protected. It's a visual and gentle fence to let people know to look in and pay attention. They are just, so throughout our entire conversation, Tila, as well as the other farmers, continued to send me data and documents. I was just like, send me everything you've got, and I would read it and work with it. But it's, again, it would be risky if I thought I could be the one to tell people how to enter it. So what we did is we culled all that information, and Scout created a book that's printed in the second room. And the shield are just sort of a teaser. They're just the first couple documents that I grabbed. So there's something sort of improvisational about that. But it was interesting because it's really old stuff and really new stuff. So it gives sort of that feeling. And it creates, again, another circle in the space. So that's what those documents are and what they're doing there. It was really important to me that things felt open and inviting, and the work itself taught your body how to respect it, rather than putting up a fence or any kind of surveillance or anything else. We were just going to work with people's physical understanding of where to put themselves in space. As well as protecting the museum, because of course they're nervous that they're going to have to buy broken stuff, right? So this was a kind of an undeniable resolve for all of those issues that ended up becoming something really poetic and really powerful in terms of a visual presence that is both beautiful and gentle, as well as so powerful. Your body responds to it and respects how to deal with it, which is sort of a metaphor for how I now know these women to be, undeniably powerful and gentle and open at the same time, with a very hard, clear message that you can't miss. So that's what that is. There's a lot more to this work, this particular piece, and I'm not sure if you all want me to unpack all of that or if we should wait.
I'm happy for you to unpack it now, Sarah. I think there's so much beautiful significance to the number of baskets and what's in each basket. It's visually beautiful, but there's also an olfactory.
I would love to unpack it. Thank you. I just want to make this would be a good one to speak from. So, every time I get to be with you all, I learn a bunch of things. And one of the first things that the women taught me was how important the moon is in terms of everything that they are doing in the water. And we all followed that in terms of like when I traveled and everything. And it starts with the 13 moons of the year. So each one of these clam baskets, which are my object that I create to represent protecting the earth. And that's too many stories to tell, but that's what these do. So I decided there would be 13 clam baskets. So the white and gold ones, those are a series that I called Skyline, and it's about manifest destiny, which Tila was speaking about earlier in some of those romantic paintings that were made that encourage people to come here and do wrong. So those talk to the complexity of the American dream. The 5 that do not have handles, each one of those represent one of the kelp farmers. So the handles for something that weavers put on baskets during the Victorian basket craze, because white women wanted handles on their Easter baskets, even though they were impractical and would break. So the handles on the white and gold ones represent that moment historically. And so the Shinnecock 5, they don't have handles because they're not burdened with those moments of colonization. So those baskets are made with porcelain as opposed to the slip cast, so they're a higher delicate value material. They are cobalt blue on the inside and they're just white on the outside. And so they look like the entire universe from any distance. They have this kind of incredible infinity to that beautiful dark blue. So that's what those 13 objects are. Oh, and the black with the gold rim. So that's called the Sun is Oso star, and it's the new iteration of the Skyline version to speak to the universal power and beauty of the Earth and the solar system, superseding the colonial project. So each basket holds something. So the first is, of course, we have one that has dried Shinnecock kelp from their very first harvest that the kelp farmers provided. There's one that has sand that one of the kelp farmers gave to us. There's one that has the prickly pears that my crew and I went out and picked at the direction of the kelp farmers, taught us how to do it from the internet. I have my 4 medicine plants. So there's the mugwort that grows on the Umpqua River. That is the plant that we burn to invite bad things to go away and invite clarity of vision. I have the Quadrivalgus nicotinus, which is the sacred tobacco that my community grows. We've brought it back out of hibernation. So this is like a 7th generation seed that I grow of our tobacco. Its spiritual practice is introducing the truth. When we burn it, it promises that we will tell the truth and we also recognize the truth. I have included sweetgrass, which is another medicine plant that I grow. It invites sweetness into every situation and protects us. And lastly, in terms of the medicine plants that I've included a red cedar bark. Red cedar is our most esteemed plant here, and it is to recognize the ancestors and ask them to come in and protect us. So those are the plant beings that are included in this. Additionally, I have included white heart beads of the color red, orange, yellow, light blue, dark blue, and green. And these are the colors of the rainbow. So everywhere that I put my work, I want everyone to feel welcome, safe, and included. And so that is what the rainbow is pointing to in this work. The additional inverse of that is to speak to the arranged marriage between the indigenous people of this land and the indigenous people from Africa who are brought here against their will, and the arranged marriage between us. If you do not have to pay for the labor and you do not have to pay for the resources, you become a superpower overnight. So the white heart beads are one of the trade beads that were put into the ballast of the slave ship to keep them from falling over while they came here. So there's a lot of sorrow and horror in that, but again, it's a beautiful object that we have always cross-culturally used to keep those stories in the forefront while also uplifting our people. So those are the objects and the beings that are in those baskets. In the center, we also spoke about different cultural objects we might bring into this exhibition. And there was a lot of conversation with the kelp farmers talking about different baskets they had, and also a club that they use. And we also have a club. You use it in fishing, hunting. Sometimes you use it to protect yourself. And because, as we know, Indigenous women are very much, well, Indigenous people in general, we suffer in terms of a lot of colonial violence, sexual violence, all kinds of both cold and hot threats. I put that club in the middle. That's one of mine. And to soften it and gentle it, I wrapped a small pink ribbon around it in the middle to show that it is for protection. It's not a threat, but it is to be understood that we are not to be messed with. So those are the things. In terms of the title is Sugarfoot. So my mother, we're horse people on my mom's side, and she had a horse when she was little. She grew up in the very rural backwoods of Oregon in the mountains, and she ran wild and rode her horse all over the mountains. And this horse she had was called Sugarfoot, and she would ride it. It's called that because it was so gentle. And she would ride it over the mountains to a place called Camp Easter Steel. Camp Easter Steel was an organization that people who had children that were either mentally or physically very deformed would send their children during the summer to go and hang out with each other and have a good time and have a normal childhood. And so my mother would ride this horse through the mountains to get to this Camp Easter Steel and let the children play with her horse and give them rides and things. And so it's one of those family stories that's so precious to me and pivotal in my being. And so as I was deeply involved in this work and experienced so much motherhood and sisterhood and auntyhood with this community, I kept thinking of her in that story and that importance of how gentle you want to take care of other people's things. And because I was given this tremendous responsibility and privilege and honor to speak about this community who I so love and respect and I'm now quite obsessed with, I wanted to publicly say how important it is to be very gentle and respectful with other people's stuff as though it were your own, and maybe even more important than your own, more gentle than you would with your own grandmother kind of feeling. And so this piece in the center, the wingus, the basket started this space, was about me constantly reminding myself to be as gentle as possible and give everything that I had. And so the reiterating word sugar kept happening. And so this was the sugar that I could bring to this exhibition.
Thank you, Sarah. I think in the interest of time, I'm going to skip the next couple of slides, except to say that Sarah is an amazing basket weaver, and she brought her basket weaving traditions here to the east coast of Long Island and did a basket weaving workshop with the Shinnecock Kelp Farmers.
You wait. Yep. Let me put those together, okay, Scout?
Yes.
Thank you. So what we're making here, these are cattail mats, and many tribes make cattail mats to bury their dead because they're quick, they're beautiful, they're plentiful. You can do them when the plant is green if you need to, so that you can get at it a lot of the time. And it was something that I thought would be an easy thing to bring into the community. And I was like, oh, I'll teach everybody how to pick and everything else. And that was an immediate like, this won't work because the cattail in Southampton are endangered because of colonization. And it was one of those missteps where I stepped on a nerve, and the community was just, it brought up a lot with everybody. And I was like, oh, okay, back out, back out, back out. And I happen to have a cache because I'm a weaving teacher and I'm always gathering. And so I was like, okay, well, I will bring these out because I need to give these people something, from my people. I have to be able to share something. It's more than just making art and all the things. I had to leave something behind in the people that they could bring forward. So this was a thing that we would be able to do quickly. This was an evening, a couple hours where we worked. I just needed to put this into the bodies, hands, and hearts. And so that's what we're doing here. And thank you, Scout, for giving me the mic back. It's too important to put on your shoulders. If you would go to the next slide. Okay, so this one I'm calling Cattail Mat, Yatila, I'll get the seagrass. So in this wall, I'm thinking of the wall as the mat, right? And these documents here, on either end, you have the QR code because it's always important to recognize that we are living in an indigenous and contemporary world, just like everyone else. So we have the QR code so people can donate to the Shinnecock Kelp Farmers on the far left. Then we have the document that was spoken of where the US government, the Supreme Court, says the name Shinnecock Nation and wins the seaweed case. So they have been recognized here legally. And in the middle is this beloved map that you see of the bay. And then on the far right is the QR code for the sugar loaf. So what I want to say here that's really important, it is not, in terms of relevance to contemporary art, we are no longer in a time where it's just okay to like lift a mirror, get everybody upset and leave them high and dry. Everyone in this room wants to help, and this is how you can do it. You can help by flowing funds to both of these organizations that are proven and doing the work. And that is how you can get involved. If you can't go get in the water, if you don't know anyone in politics, if you don't have any other levers, you can support this way. You can take a picture of these QR codes and send them to every person you know. Like there's always going to be a way for you to help and be part of this. And so this was the conversation about how to ignite the community, prove this history, again, that everyone knows but is fun to not look at, and give you a way to get on the side that of this situation that is in alignment with your morality. So thank you for letting me have the mic again.
Absolutely. And I wanted to, with this work, I want to get to Matriarch's Minion, but I do just want to show the documents that were behind the print work. The map here, which was one document that Tila sent to Sara over the course of the collaboration. And it shows up not only in the cattail mat work, but as well in Sugarloaf as well. Do you want to say anything about the map, Tila?
In 1700. And you can see how vast it was. And then, of course, when the railroad came through, when they wanted to create a summer colony out in the Hamptons, they had this huge problem because I'm sure you could see that the land now is bisected by the Long Island Railroad. So they had this big problem. So that's the problem that Samuel Parrish, as the attorney for the Long Island Railroad, solved by, even though this land was then leased back to us again in 1791, I think. In 1859, this was the literal land that was swapped for a fee title to the Shinnecock Neck that we're now facing all kinds of crises on for various reasons of ranging between economic terrorism from the state of New York to the rising levels of the sea. We're just a peninsula surrounded on all sides by water. So every time there's a storm, I think FEMA used to tell us by 2075 would be underwater, but now it's 2050 would be 100% underwater during every storm. So yeah, the Shinnecock Hills, that's the highest point in the town of Southampton, the safest land, arguably, and it was all stolen from us. So yeah, this is a reference. This was published shortly after the Non-Intercourse Act. That's the federal law that prohibits exactly what Samuel Parrish did to steal our land. So this is what our territory should be. I mean, it should be much vaster, but in terms of dwindling down, it should at least be these 4,200 acres compared to the 800 acres that we have now.
And then I think the other documents that I think we should just say something on are the documents from those seaweed cases from the 1840s. And Tila, you had brought in this image as well, which I think kind of helps to illustrate.
Yeah, I really like this image. I was at a seaweed symposium at Southampton College, and some young students were presenting, and they showed this picture, and I thought it was really interesting to me because I had always heard the story of the seaweed cases, and basically the dispute in those cases were that Shinnecock folks had harvested a bunch of seaweed from Peconic Bay, which we have a farm at this season. I think we've had one of our most recent farm sites, but we had collected a bunch of seaweed in a cart like this, and it was stolen by a colonist for animal feed. There was a lot of like pigs and cows and these types of European animals, and so I'm actually going to be on a panel next week in Rhode Island, and they asked me just yesterday. They were like, "It's about animal feed and soil amendment," but yeah, people are like, "You should turn your seaweed into animal feed," and I'm like, "Absolutely not," because the seaweed cases, we had to go to court with what little resources we had and say this seaweed was stolen from us, and so the judge decided that as a right, Shinnecock people can have seaweed as a natural resource, but additionally, we can lease out seaweed lots to non-Indian people. And so I think a lot of people here might know that jurisdictionally, Suffolk County has just authorized themselves to lease out 500 seaweed lots to non-Indian folks. And so that's to continue watching. But I really wanted to include this because it put it into perspective, this story that I had always heard, and now we have this picture that like makes it like they stole this whole, and I don't even think it was one cart of seaweed. We had spent like a couple days collecting the carts, and they were just stolen from us. But because that terrible thing happened, I mean, it ultimately did lead to our federal acknowledgement. So.
And I think I want to end with this beautiful piece, The Matriarch Minion, which I think Danielle, maybe you provided the title for at the end of it, but these are some of Sarah's dance caps that she does in their honorary works, and each one of these dance caps represents one of the Shinnecock Kelp Farmers. And I wanted to ask about the kind of process of, they're quite individualized, and the colors that are in the ribbons, as well as the caps themselves, are very specific to each one of you. And I wanted to ask about the process of that conversation between Sarah and the farmers, and maybe the significance of some of the colors that you chose.
Us first.
Great, Donna.
So I chose to the far side over here. I'm not artistically gifted. My children are, but I am not. So in my mind, when Sarah said we'd have these caps, and she could either, do the colors for us, and each one would represent one of us. She said, but I can also send them to you and you can work on them. So in my mind, I was like, well, I got my daughter and my grandson, and we'll sit down and we'll they'll help mom out. Every time I go, and I don't think it's unusual, I think we all do it, when we go to a shore, wherever it is, you pick up things. They're little gifts, they're little stories. For me, they represent a connection. So I always go home, if not with a pocket full, then with a bucket full. And then, of course, I have to find some place to put them in my house. But everything from feathers, rocks, little stones. So I have quite a collection. So I get the cap and I say to my daughter, I'm like, okay, Edie, we're going to, you guys are going to help me. And she said, well, Mom, I've got the paints and I've got paintbrushes. I was like, okay, good. She said, all you have to do is paint it. And I'm like, me? And she's like, Mom, you can do it. So there was the challenge. And so this is what I came up with, just following blue for the sky, and then the grass and the, what is it, the eelgrass, and then, of course, the kelp. And I did that part, and I felt very good. So then I went into my collection, and I decided on each cap, there's a portion that to me represents the four winds, the four directions. So I said, well, I'll put something different on each direction. And I had found these little baby horseshoe crabs that had been emptied, and they'd gone on to larger houses. And so I picked up some of those. I had a nice piece of wampum that had not been smoothed out. It just was broken and sitting there on the water. And just various things. I went over to Puerto Rico, and they have what looks like a clamshell, but they're very tiny and delicate. So, of course, I stuck those in my suitcase and brought those home. And so basically, my cap just speaks about the gifts that are given to us by nature if we take the time to stop and notice them. And you see the importance, because each one of them, I found a feather, and I put that on there too. It all represents life. And we are the race of creation. We are the caretakers. And so it's our responsibility to take care of every other living thing. The trees grow naturally, the grass, but if we cut down too many trees and don't replenish what we take, what will there be? A lack of trees. And all these plants create oxygen for us to breathe. So it is a united creation together, but we hold the larger responsibility because we have dominion over what was created. So when I walk along the water and go into the water, which is what, I mean, as children, we were in the water all the time, but to be a grown adult going into the water for a purpose of regenerating, it's the most wonderful thing. And so I wanted my cap to say all of that. And I think it did pretty good. Yeah, yeah. So then Danielle also did hers personally. She chose to do hers so she can tell the story of her cap.
So I had a very similar experience, and my why was or what I wanted to add was everything and every creature that I have contact with every time that I enter the water. And so I have oysters, scallops, seaweed, mussels, some sand, everything that really spoke to me. And an interesting part of our story is these two caps. We did not make these together. Donna was going away before our opening in February, and she dropped off hers. And I came for some of the installation to look around and meet with Sara and the team here at the parish. And I saw Donna's, and I was dropping off mine, and they're so similar. Very, very similar. Colors might be a little bit different. I think you have a feather. I didn't add a feather. I've been avoiding birds in the water these days. And it really pointed to how connected we are and how in sync we are without really even really knowing. working separately. And then when they come together, and in this piece that Sarah created, we're on the ends holding the project together on the wall. It was really fun to create.
Simple. I talked and Sarah created it. Otherwise, it would have been a hot mess. So that's, yeah. Thanks, Sarah.
Tila, is yours the white and gold, or is that Darlene? Okay.
White and gold is Tila.
Can you talk about mine a little bit, Sarah?
Yes. Well, I suspect that yellow is Tila's favorite color because every time I'm like, what color is she really wants yellow? So all of her ribbons are varieties of yellow, but she picked this crown. She chose it, and these ones there were some varieties they could pick from the things that I auditioned, and this is one of them. So the dentellium and the white heart beads that are in the original cap, I've painted gold. So they're both beautiful, and it kind of speaks to the regalia and the sound, but they're also teeth. They're also protectors, right? They're a little bit ferocious if you think of it with that mind. And so this white and gold combination, it is very sumptuous and beautiful. And I'm a little bit pushing on that idea of what gold is, how it is a recognition of royalty and importance and sumptuousness. It's like so pretty. It brings you in. And so she was attracted to it. And I think it goes back to gold. I think it goes back to also, this is my own suspicion, but there was a lot of babies involved with Tila during this time, right? Like I think you had a baby right before we started all this. And in my mind, these are about pointing out how precious and important our children are, right? Like I wasn't at all surprised you picked this one. It felt like a new mom, like about the new baby situation, right? And in my brain, there was also a little one that went with it, and there's only so many things you could do. But those were the things I think we thought about in terms of your selections here. Did I leave anything out, Tila?
No, it's a boot night. Thank you.
Yeah.
The gold that appears in Tila's dance cap, for me, Sarah, spoke about colonization, the systemic pressures that we continue to be under. And while the gold is so beautiful, it represents all of those things. The white, to me, represents...
Well, it absolutely does. And I didn't want to burden the story.
The white represents to me, Tila is my daughter, in case anyone doesn't know that, her upbringing and exposure, Princess Chi-Chi, her teachings. You are here to protect Shinnecock Hills. And we did our best to raise her to understand the land and our connection. So that's what the white said to me. And then when I was asked about my dance cap, I immediately felt the ancestors' presence. I immediately said to Sarah, that's a wigwam. That is a message from our ancestors of home and building, and how the shape of the wigwam to this day, many architects look to copy as special ways to build homes. The air circulates, the heat rises, it's cool in the hot months. So that's what I saw. And so Sarah created a wigwam for my dance cap. And it was a little bit more than 18 months ago when I became a grandmother for the second time. So I wanted my dance cap to represent my grandson. Oh, that's good to know. and my granddaughter, and a granddaughter on the way. So when you see the ribbons in my dance cap, you'll see a lot of pink representing my granddaughters, and you'll see red in all of the dance caps representing a call and thanks to our ancestors. And you'll see the sway of the ribbon. And Sarah asked all of us, she said she had a feeling to bring the black ribbon in and asked, is that okay? And we all said, yes, that's okay. And we even embrace that black because that is part of our essence and the flow of us continuing as matriarch minions to lead our children, to speak to the scientists, to tell our story and move ahead together as one for a better future. We can do better, and we are here to be part of that better, not only for this exhibit or this time, but our plan is for 7 generations and what Tila often refers to as the next 100 years, reminding us what are we going to do for the next 100 years. So Sarah, thank you so much for the experience of the dance cap. I take that experience with me as I dance through this time where we have the opportunity to work with kelp. And also, when you look at the map of the 4,000 acres, you see it's a gold color. For me, that's a message that kelp is part of the solution that Mother Earth is offering us. And so we step up and we invite volunteers and the community to join us in this. While there are dark areas of the legacy in the past, what a beautiful way to move forward together.
Thank you, darling. And I might be handing this mic right back to you, but I had one question I wanted to ask was if right now, if there's any specific call to action that you have for our audience or things you'd like to direct their attention to.
Yeah, so we're really encouraging folks to upgrade their septic systems. There's funding available right now through the town of Southampton, as well as the county of Suffolk. If you follow us on Facebook or any social media, we have information of a Stony Brook professor who actually will help you design your system, and then do all the grant application, 100% no cost to you, up to $65,000. And it's 1 to 4 family residential homes. So please, 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 your septic system is most likely outdated. It's something that you could look into and let your friends, family, community know. It's going to be like the generational solution to the nitrogen problem out here. So it's something that all of you could do to help the situation.
And there are pamphlets, I think, on the table on the way out as you leave. And then I think I just wanted to ask you all, it's been a year and a half or so of this collaboration with Sara, and I think we touched on it a little bit in the matriarch minion and the dance caps, but just what this has meant to you all, the connection with Sara and creating this work with her over the course of the past year and a half.
Oh, there she is. She's back. It's been an incredible experience getting to know Sara and watching us grow and us watching her grow. And when you're collaborating with artists or really anyone that we're collaborating with, going through trials together. We had that terrible storm. We had to cancel. We were all gathered. It was very disappointing. So we have all of these experiences together and going in the water together and picking the kelp and trying to figure out ways to send her materials and creating our dance caps. It's been very meaningful, and I really have grown to love Sara and the team that we've worked with. And Scout has been coming out into the water with us for the same amount of time, a year and a half. And it's really deepened our friendship and trust. And I'm just very grateful.
I really appreciate everything that Sara has done and the way that she heard our vision and as displayed in the galleries is really transformational and really beautiful. I really appreciate how modern it is because one of the things that was really important to me was that we not be cast aside as some like past keeper of, I don't know. I didn't want it to be romanticized. I wanted it to be very real. And so we really worked together to span back from like historical into super modern. So some of those papers you see, for example, we had an amicus brief that we submitted to a federal court on behalf of some Shinnecock plaintiffs whose rights were being violated by the DEC for asserting the very same rights to hunt and to fish and to gather that we assert and practice every time that we go out on our farm. And so to have all of that like whole range of like, 13,000 years of history all the way up until like the present modern day. And then the themes, of course, of that are so connected between our communities, just being in community with Sara in that way was really impactful, and to share the gifts really demonstrates the reciprocity that we strive to achieve every day in our organization. So I'm very appreciative of that. And I think it's beautiful, and I hope that everyone, goes back to the gallery and just soaks it in.
And I love the conversations. Sarah's like, I'll need some horseshoe crab shells and I need some prickly pear. So we had to give directions to where the prickly pear was. So I just love being a part of all of this and getting it together. So fun.
And Sara came out to the farm. She immediately got her waders on. Now, she's taller than Dan or I, so we're out there and the water's about here, and Sarah's got it down at the waist, and I'm like, look at her. And you'd think she had been out with us several times. There's an energy and a spirit that each of us carries. And I have found that when we're out in that water, you get to see real people, who they really are. And not to say one is any better than the other, but some people harmonize. Some people kind of struggle a little bit. We have Mish out there. He harmonizes with us real good. He's one of our volunteers. And it is, and it will continue to be a wonderful journey with Sara. She is very genuine, she's so talented. Like I said, I have no artistic genes in me. They just kind of didn't hit me. But to be with someone so connected, and she was so insistent on it being our story. She's the artist, but she wanted our story. And then the fact that we're Indigenous people together, it just made it such a beautiful relationship. And I can just see us going a lot of places together. She'll always be one of us, and I appreciate her.
For me, learning about healing as we go through and are reminded of these stories of loss, and what is it that we need to do to find balance? What is it that we're doing that is a story that can be told at the Parish Art Museum? It's a tough history. It's not easy. It's truth telling, but done in such a way, Sarah, that is appealing to others, to pull them in and get their interest has been a great experience for me. And as we pull more people into this experience, I feel that we can move ahead much the way that kelp helps us to move ahead. Tila mentioned acidification. Acidification in our waters is due to the high rate of nitrates in the water, basically sewage. Carbon dioxide, and kelp consumes it and creates a balance, a pH balance, creating oxygen. And that's what art, to me, I've learned can bring to our story, a balance, neutralize the pain and hurt, neutralize both sides of the story so that we can move ahead together. So initially that was very difficult for me, but because of her skill and because of her background, being an Indigenous person and actually understanding the legacy that we endure has helped me to come to a place where we could work together to create a curriculum that we're taking into the schools. As early in the program, you heard taking time. Taking time is a cheerful way to pull children and adults in who feel that the climate is a disaster. There's nothing we can do. But a 40-year-old song can bring everyone together and say, yeah, we have hope and we can do this together. And look at the Shinnecock Kelp Farmers. We are doing what we can. Join us. You don't have to be a kelp farmer, but join us in understanding what's happening to the climate, and let's move ahead and do better.
Thank you all. I think at this point, I'd like to invite Candace Moeller to the stage before we end to take the mic.
Hi, everyone. My name is Candace Moeller, and I'm the director at Kristen Tierney Gallery. We represent Sara, and we work with Sara out of our gallery in New York City. I'm also joined today by two of my colleagues from the gallery, William Petroni, our managing director, and Isidra Pachkowski, our gallery associate. But Sara asked if we could present the kelp farmers with a gift today coming from her. It's a way to say thank you so much for protecting and for healing the waters. And so we are really happy today to get to present you with a suite of prints on mulberry paper. They're on that table over there if you'd like to take a look later. But they are prints both of the QR codes, one of which you see up here on the screen, and also prints of the 18th century Shinnecock Bay. So we are really happy to be able to facilitate that. So glad that we got to be here today to listen and to learn. And it was a pleasure to support Sara in this project. So thank you so much for everything.
So I think we will end it there. Thank you all so much for joining us today for this conversation. And thank you to the Shinnecock Kelp Farmers for being here and everything you've shared with us over the past year and a half. We're very grateful to you. And to Sara, if we have you on Zoom, the parish Wi-Fi, I guess, has been going in and out today. But Sara, we're so grateful to you for your work, for this exhibition, and thank you for joining us today.